Don't you find it amazing how the interest in a very specific genre of watches has virtually dwarfed the rest of the industry? How a very basic, don't get me wrong, brilliant, but also conventional material like stainless steel has become so sought after that even precious metals are being ignored. The write-up's not done yet. Hold on, move to another slide. I'll be with you in a moment. How did this come to be? Can we trace the origins of this change in dial color, and what could it spell for the future of watch designs moving forward? Is the green dial watch going to be a part of this future, or is it a fad? The overarching question with this is, what is the deal with the green dial watch? Over the last year and a half, 2 years, we've seen this rapid expansion towards using green on a watch. And this trend is something we have seen before, and in order to understand it, we need to first go back to that history and discuss it briefly. But the demand for this color is an interesting one. On one hand, we could say it's an insatiable demand, but on the other end of the spectrum, we could feel like it's getting to a point where it's almost overly saturated, and we're seeing so much of it that maybe people are losing interest. As a quick recap for a bit of context, here is a list of names. AP, Patek, Piaget, Girard-Perregaux, Glashütte, Bulgari, MB&F, Moser, Rolex, Omega, Tudor, IWC, JLC, Seiko, Breitling, Longines, Montblanc, Tag Heuer, Oris. I would love to say that this list was off the top of my head, but it's so extensive that it needs a full checklist to follow. I'm sure, like you, many of us have been questioning this validity of the choice of green, and this video is going to expand on that, asking questions like, is green more versatile than blue? What is the deal with the demand? Is it going to change anytime soon? And what could the future spell for this color? Now, naturally, we all have our preferences, and green as a color choice is just as versatile as blue in many situations, and arguably many people would appreciate it over the color blue. It's obvious that certain green watches are getting a lot more attention than others. In a way, we can trace this history back to where it originally started and where it is now. Before getting into the video proper, I'd like to emphasize that very different to other products out there today, where you have a very clear option of choosing a specific color. Go to a car showroom, choose the color you like. With watches, you are given what is presented. There's not really much choice for you. It seems like there has been quite an expansion over time where people are able to customize watch dials and make their own decisions, but largely we are given what is shown. This is very limiting for customers and can affect the entire buying experience. So on one hand, we can appreciate this shift, this opportunity, this scale for more diversity with the choices of colors that we get. On the other hand, when it's introduced so rapidly in succession between so many manufacturers, it feels more like a cash grab than anything valid. It almost feels like market research has taken the forefront, and it's not so much about consumer choice. In order to understand this rapid surge and popularity of the green dial sports watch, we have to first go back a way to study its precursor and the origins of the blue dial stainless steel sports watch. Quite simply, we could say it was a formula that was perfected. And for us as a community, we can point the finger largely at watches that are Genta inspired, Genta designed. That's where a lot of this began, because as most of us know, blue dial watches aren't a new thing. The blue dial sports watch has been around for a very long time, and so has the green dial watch. It's only because the focus has been so pinpoint accurate on certain sports models that the demand and craze for blue dial sports watches has climbed so much in recent years. Two great examples around this area, the Audemars Piguet 15202 Jumbo and the Patek Philippe Nautilus Reference 5711. These two watches are pretty much the flagship sports watches for their respective brands, and both of which we can clearly see adopt similar styles and formats, both being 70s inspired and originated around the same time. Over the last 7 to 5 years, we have seen a continual demand for these watches, mainly to do with this whole idea and appreciation that collectors suddenly have for the integrated sports watch model. Using these base characteristics, we can see that the 70s inspired integrated bracelet stainless steel sports watch, possibly with a bit of texture on its dial, has been shared everywhere. From this stage, there are at least 40 different watches out there, all from different brands, using this same system. It's been foolproof, highly successful. Some models have been revivals of their past pieces, others have taken this idea and implemented it with a more modern twist, more of an integral part of their current DNA. From the baseline entry-level Tissot PRX, all the way up to the Alonga and Zona Odysseus. There is also something else that perpetuates this attention for the blue dial stainless steel sports watch, and that is demand. Regardless of the brand, there is always going to be someone out there who wants one. The business model is fantastic, but then the question to ask is, what happens when you can't possibly supply these watches anymore? What happens if they're finished? What happens if production is finally over? What do you do then? Let's move across to try and understand the hype surrounding the green dial watch and how it's just expanded so rapidly. I said in the beginning that the demand for the blue dial stainless steel sports watch began with the Genta-inspired pieces like the Royal Oak Jumbo and the Nautilus. For the green dial watch, I think the two pieces that helped drive this attention was first off the Rolex Hulk Submariner, not a new piece by any means, but one that's gotten a lot of attention over the years and still to this day receives lots and even more demand. The next one is the Patek Philippe Aquanaut that we nicknamed the Grenade. This watch with the olive drab dial, olive drab strap garnered so much attention, and this is where I think the seed was planted to help establish this new configuration. We need to be very specific about this point. The distinction between an anniversary watch and just a generic change of dial. If a watch is celebrating an anniversary and it is in green, then it will get many more eyes on it. Whereas a watch that's just introduced with a different color formula doesn't necessarily get the same amount of praise, even though the brands are hoping that this will in some way change the direction of prospective buyers. I wanted to share this with you just because it adds a bit more context behind the pure insanity that is going into buying green dial watches. We've seen the development of pieces like the Hulk Submariner, now a watch that's discontinued, so of course the appreciation and attention for the watch would climb. But for certain models, especially in the Patek Philippe lineage, naturally being produced in small batches, a lot of people want the watch, and they will pay any price to get one. Before giving you a rough price estimation of a certain Patek Philippe Nautilus, now with stainless steel case and bracelet, using a diamond set bezel with a green dial, I want to be sure that you are sitting down and that you're not drinking anything when I tell you the price. I'll wait. Okay. $750,000. On one hand, we can say that we do understand the significance of this watch, but it's also unfathomable at the same time. We know that Patek Philippe in steel is sought after and collectible. It's the first time they've ever used a diamond set bezel on a steel watch, which is impressive. And since this is signifying the end of the 5711 era for the Nautilus, a green dial is one of those things that caps off this landmark. But $750,000 for a steel watch on the grey market? Right, let's move away from this and talk more about the versatility of the color. Is green more versatile than blue? Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, a lot of us have our preferences. The majority prefer blue as a color. I would say the majority of the world prefer blue. If we're talking about the significance of colors and what they represent, both have mystical properties. If we're talking purely about color theory and the clothing we wear, the attire we own, I would say more often than not, people will choose blue over green. I think the beauty that blue has as a color is that it's able to blend quite seamlessly with black. So it is very subdued. It has a level of elegance and formality to it, but it can also double as something a lot more casual and easygoing. This is maybe another reason why so many people love the formula of having a blue dial sports watch in stainless steel. It has a brilliant versatility. Green as a color, on the other hand, is definitely coming back in vogue. And what it does do, now that we see so much blue everywhere, it breaks up this repetition. It adds a bit more electrical excitement to the clothing that we wear. Where blue is a better color to represent something like luxury and elegance, green on the other hand represents words like vitality and health. What I like seeing with the green dial watches that are on offer today is that there is a variance between olive all the way to emerald. There is so much variety between these two colors that I think works very well depending on the individual. And like the choices of blue, there are many opportunities to expand the selection of green in the future. But choosing between these two colors, blue and green, I think the majority would always still prefer blue. Let's say 78% of the majority will prefer to own a blue watch over a green watch. What the green watch has for it is that it is something else. It's something more unique, something a bit more special. It doesn't look like the generic blue dial sports watch that's pretty much everywhere. Focusing on this demand for green watches, I've added a few points. One of them was the feeling of missing out. I think this is happening across the board, especially when we look to the anniversary watches, and many of which that are discontinued at the moment. People are seeing this inherent value that the green dial watch offers, and they want a slice of it. It's clear that when we see watches going for ridiculous prices, people are willing to pay whatever the fee. For a simple change of color, this is not something I would advise, but what do I know? Moving to the grey market, I use these words of no passion, only profit. And I believe that in a way, these dealers are focusing on this feeling of missing out, and they're trying to direct the attention towards these watches, not for the value that they offer, celebrating a certain occasion or a moment in the watch's past or its present, but rather just to get the attention on it so that they can drive the prices up so they can sell more. What is the future of the green dial sports watch? Is it a fad, or is there something more to it? Again, like I said, I think the anniversary watch speaks for itself. The watches that are being introduced purely for the sake of trying to jump on this train to follow suit will be like any other watch in a few years' time. But once again, this is all dependent on the person buying the piece, and if green is really their color. My prediction is, very much like we have seen with the blue dial sports watch, that the more of these watches that are produced, the less desirable they will become. It's like seeing the same thing every single day. You eventually become tired of it, and a simple change in color of the watch won't be any different. But this is an interesting talking point that I think we all have different thoughts and feelings about. I'm very interested in knowing your opinions around the subject. In conclusion, the pros and cons around this argument, what I do like is that we are seeing this variety offered to us. That we are now able to choose a watch that is either green, blue, black, white. Whatever our feelings and where our tastes lie, we have an opportunity to own it. What I don't like is the feeling that every single watch brand under the sun is now trying to do the same thing. They are flooding the market with this color in order to try and build on the hype that it's already generated for itself. What it ends up doing, it's like taking a pure liquid and then diluting it, and should instead be held back and used on watches that the brand truly cherishes. And the question I will leave you with is, which color will be used next? I think burgundy is quite a good contender. Watches like the Tissot PRX, moving all the way up to the Lange und Söhne Datamatic, what's it called? What? Saxomatic, what is it called again? Odysseus, that's the one. Jeez, like. All the way up to the Lange und Söhne Odysseus.